Hey guys, welcome to Overvolted. I am your host, Kirk Johnson. We have Matthew and Aurelian with us. Say hi.
Hey.
Hey guys.
So we have some interesting topics today. Hopefully everyone has gotten a chance to see the Zen 3 leak video that Aurora just put out. We have some additional leak information we'll talk about at the end. And we're going to talk a little bit about something called Matisse 2. So let's go ahead and, well, we forgot. We're also going to talk about the new laptop line that came out.
Yeah. One more thing. Jim was supposed to be here. We don't know where he is.
Hopefully he'll come in at the end.
We've spent like an hour waiting for him. We can't wait any longer. We gotta get this done. Let's start with Zen 3 since we already, just in case you missed it, Jim got some info on Zen 3. Most of it was stuff we already knew, so it was nice to get, well, not new, but stuff that was leaked before, because it's nice to have a little bit of confirmation. We were all pretty confident that this leak stuff was true because people like Red Gaming Tech had leaked this before. I think Red Gaming Tech has been the main leaker this time around for Zen 3, at least so far. Basically, we have 8-core 60X confirmed from the AMD leaked slide, or leaked presentation. SMT2 confirmed, no SMT4. That's what AMD leaked by accident. Higher boot clocks to be expected. But we also have, interestingly, the L3 cache size is going to be remaining the same at 32 megabytes per die. So the per CCX cache is doubled from 16 to 32 megabytes. But because there's only one CCX per die instead of two, the total L3 remains the same. There is no 48 or 64 megabyte L3 cache. That was something hinted at by people like Red Gaming Tech, but we disagree. We don't think there will be more cache. What else? There's going to be more cache latency, but because the CCX is now 8 cores instead of 4, overall latency should be down, at least in a multi-threaded workload. That's about it when it comes to the ARC itself. Milan is out right now. The A0 stepping is. We don't know when it first came out, but we do know that it is being tested right now. And B0 stepping should come out around September. It was apparently delayed, and that is about it. Zen 3.
Looks like then that we would not probably get anything on the market for the desktop based on its architecture this year.
Potentially.
And the thing being as it is, I don't think there's a need for that, so...
If we do see anything, it's going to be very late in the year, as they've been stating all along. But with the current worldwide issue, it's definitely going to potentially have an impact. Maybe a few weeks of time slippage, which could put it right into early January instead of November or December timeframe, which they may have been shooting for originally.
I'm a little bit worried for AMD with this thing that goes with the human malware, because as far as I understood, the chips, the way they are designed, and the fact that they use the IO chip made by one fab and then the TSMC. The other ones, they probably rely a lot more on moving the pieces around the world.
Well, they're both centered in Taiwan.
No. Is Global Foundries in Taiwan?
Isn't it in the States?
Well, it's AMD's old fabs and stuff. I think they have them. Don't they have one in Malaysia? And they have one in...
Oh yeah, I did forget about the Malaysia one.
I think they have them in several countries.
It might be hit if things go bad. Worse than now, they might be a bit affected. I don't know. I mean, as a risk, it's there.
Yeah, if anything, they're going to be running out of IO dies rather than 7nm chips.
Yeah, on the IO die.
And there's not enough time to put IO dies on 7nm.
So in that sense, the way Intel has its own products based on the same. I mean, they have their own fabs and all, but they might be able to weather this easier. If things don't recover, I see a bit more risk for AMD. Not a huge thing, but it might cause them some delay. Or even if it doesn't cause them delays, it might be more difficult to roll out big numbers out the market.
Yeah, I don't know about delays. They're not in production yet, so hopefully it doesn't matter.
Well, we have gotten signals from TSMC and such that they are not suffering any delays due to the human malware or anything like that, and everything is going to go out the door right on time. If there are any delays, it's going to be logistically.
Yeah, or down to Global Foundries if they're hit. And we also got some Zen 4 info, very small. The two big things are that the L2 cache is now 1 megabyte, and it will support AVX512. So that basically means Zen 3 confirmed not for AVX512.
Yeah, but so few things are actually using it or demanding it that it's not that big of a deal anyway.
It's not that big of a deal.
For me personally, the fact that there was no rumor of new socket for Zen 3 actually it's good, because it shows that the original promise AMD had that they are going to carry this socket until 2020. 2020 really stands because it is 2020, so Zen 3 seems to be having the same 4 socket.
Well, and that's kind of an exciting thing about Zen 4. We can guess at that point, since it's a new socket, that there's going to be probably a different bit of power delivery to it, but also DDR5, PCIe 5 potentially, and that it might potentially have a higher core count per CCX.
I don't know about that. I think they'll keep the CCX the same.
You think it's only going to stay at 8?
Yeah, I mean, for the time being. I don't think they want to redesign the CCX every single generation. I think maybe every 2 generations would be nice. Or they could just add more chiplets.
Well, if they're sticking with 8, then they're going to have to stick 4 chiplets onto a mainstream CPU to get more than 16 cores.
Yeah.
And we do know that AMD has been wanting to push more core count, which I guess they could do with SMT4.
SMT4 wouldn't be the same as like adding more cores. It wouldn't be nearly the same.
No.
But I think given 5 nanometers increased density, they could do more chiplets rather than CCX again and doing less chiplets.
Head out.
But just tossing 1 more core per side for a total of 10 would actually be an easy low-hanging fruit.
Do we know anything about the Infinity Fabric? Will there be any changes in Zen 4?
Yes, probably.
If they bring their Infinity architecture down.
Yeah, because that's what they showed on the Financial Analyst Day. So I imagine they're going to continue working on that.
The Infinity architecture basically looks like PCIe 5 repurposed to me. They were showing it off in regards to connecting 8 GPUs to a Epic level CPU, so
this leak is kind of not a whole lot new here. It's nice to get confirmation, but unfortunately not a whole lot new to talk about here. The biggest news is that, or the biggest rumor I guess, is that the L3 cache is going to be remaining the same, and that the IPC bump is not that large for single thread. Although that's different for multi-threading, because they got rid of the input CCX. So multi-thread IPC could be like 20%, who knows. Anyways, should we move on to Renmore?
Yep.
Alright, so Renmore is out now. It's really good. As you can see by, if you've seen any of the reviews, you know that like specifically the G14 is very good. Like just look at the performance and the power consumption. It's really impressive. I didn't think it'd be nearly this good. We talked about this before we started recording in the Linus Tech Tips review, where they had to get the Acer Helio 700 to get like a fair comparison between Intel and AMD. Fair in terms of performance. And even then, the 4900HS was what could still beat the 9988HK with 120 watt power limit in several, if not most of the benchmarks that they used. And we have the TechSpot review on here, and that has the 9980H at the 90 watt power limit. And it's just embarrassing a lot of these benchmarks, like how far ahead or how close the 4900H is to the 9980H.
The only thing that the Intel chip even starts to pull ahead in is this antiquated Photoshop benchmark.
It pulls ahead in a few of these Adobe benchmarks, but this Intel CPU is drawing 2 to 3 times more power than this AMD, and it needs to be a lot faster than this, and it's not. It's way too slow for this power consumption to make any sense.
It's a lap warmer laptop.
Yeah. But scroll, I also want to talk about like the boosting that they do for the 4900HF. And as you can see, AMD is sort of doing something similar to what Intel does. Not quite the same, but it's similar, where they have like power limits. And if you don't know, Intel has like PL1, PL2, PL3. These are like power limits so that they can adjust the boost on the fly. But the thing is with Intel's, it's based on like time, or if like the CPU is literally cooking itself to death. With AMD, it seems they continue to use the boost that they have for Zen 2, but what they're doing is that they're adjusting the power target on the fly. So you can see at the very beginning it has like a 65 watt power limit, and it'll boost to 4 gigahertz. And then for a little while it'll go down to like 55 watts. Looks like about 55.
Yeah.
And that'll be sustained for a little while. And then it'll gradually ease into a 35 watt limit, which is nice.
Is this under heavy load? 100% load?
Yes. I don't know. What load is this? Let's see. This is Handbrake AVX.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty intensive.
Yeah.
But I really like how it eases into 35. With Intel, it would just
Drop.
You would see like it would just drop. Yeah. Like it drops at the very beginning from 65 to 55, but that's because it's useful for like those very brief workloads. And Intel's good at the very brief boosting, but not like this.
For me, it's interesting to see the smoothness of the curve.
Yeah.
It's probably a stability metric. Like if you've ever done undercolting and things like that, you don't just drop from 1.3 down to 1.0. It'll cause your CPU to crash in some cases.
I don't think it's about stability. I mean, I don't know if Intel might gradually drop the voltage after the clock speed drops, but this is definitely something that they've worked on. It's both clock speed and voltage. Mm-hmm. And also look at the clock speed. The clock speed is very high, even when it drops the power. The clock speed at the 55 watt limit is like 3.6, 3.7, and it actually gains a little bit towards the end of the middle part of the boost. And then once it gets down to that 35 watt limit, that's at like 3.2, 3.3. But it lost like 300, 400 megahertz from losing 20 watts. That's a lot.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if there's a switch that allows you to just run in that low power mode all the time.
I think, well, the G14 in particular has like power profiles and stuff. They have the silence mode, which I imagine is this 35 watt limit. So, oh, and by the way, I did order a G14. I ordered it within like an hour of the release going on.
Does that mean we can expect a review?
Yeah, I'll compare it to my KP Lake G laptop.
Probably more of a user experience review, since obviously we've already got plenty of benchmark reviews out there.
Yeah, this will be more like comparing it to something, the high end from 2018 versus the high end in 2020. Here's the thing, my KB Lake G laptop, its CPU TDP is 45 to 55 watts. That's already higher than Renoir, and it has half the cores. And also, you can throw in the crappy Vega M GPU, and that's like 25, 30 watts. I'm not sure what the 2060 consumes. It's going to be a lot more than that, but I think overall, I'll find power usage is very similar, but the G14 will be by far ahead.
What are you using your laptop for usually?
Well, I would like to use it for gaming, but it's really bad at that. Like the Vega M GPU is just bad. And one other problem is that the system it has so many limits when you're starting to like really do something intensive. It has power limits, it has a current limit, because I imagine the VRMs are very good, and it also has a thermal limit. Like Google, hang on, I can pull this up on my phone. But the Spectre X360 with the KB Lake G package, its heatsink is tiny. Just look at that. You can see how small this heatsink is. It's basically the heatsink in the HP Envy with the 2500U just doubled up.
Yep.
There are two heat pipes, and I think the fins is like maybe like a centimeter deep at most. Like it's just a tiny heatsink. And when you combine the CPU and the GPU, that's a package heat and power consumption of about 60 to 70 watts. And now this isn't a gaming laptop, of course. I'm comparing a gaming laptop to a non-gaming laptop. But what you have to consider is that the G14 might get better battery life than the Spectre X360 I have. And it's probably about the same thickness too. So it's just impressive what AMD and Asus have done. Like this laptop it has so few compromises. I read a lot of laptop reviews. I don't recall any laptop with so few compromises as this.
The thing that really makes this laptop look interesting to me is from a business point of view, where I'm looking at it as a potential business laptop to start buying. Hopefully this will come out in more of the regular Dell, HP, Lenovo kind of hardware, but until then, I can full well see like the 1660 GeForce version of this being something that we could give people in our, or just so that they have something that lasts an entire day as they're going from meeting to meeting without having to plug it in at their job.
There's it starts at $1,000 with
Exactly.
the 1650 and the 60 hertz display. So I imagine it'll have even more battery life there. But then again, I don't think businesses want gaming laptops.
Yeah, and I don't think so either. That's why I'm saying if they come out with a version without a GPU built into it and just leave the onboard, I think that would make a wonderful corporate laptop, something that they could get even more uptime out of.
Yeah, we have not seen like the 4800U yet, or there and the 4900U. There was a leak for the 4900U, so we know that it definitely exists. We knew that Lenovo talked about it, and we didn't hear much from it after that, but we did see a 4900U benchmark recently. I don't think it imparted that much information. Anyways, so Renoir is good. It's very fast. Do we want to talk about the new Matisse CPU?
Yeah, we do have a source that leaked to Jim that on July 2nd, AMD will be announcing a new CPU called Matisse 2, whatever that is.
Yeah, Jim isn't here to talk about this, but I did talk to Jim about this when he first got this. So I said that it would either be like a 3600 or 3600X refresh with like higher clocks and maybe less power consumption, like good for overclocking, or it's going to be like a 3950X refresh, like a 3955X.
Well, isn't Matisse the code name they use for the high-end desktop Threadrippers?
No, Threadripper is Castle Peak, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, they use the Peak.
Yeah, Matisse is a desktop.
Just the desktop CPU.
Yeah, just desktop. So, I don't know what to make of this.
Maybe something on the low end?
It's either low end or high end. There's no point in doing it in like the middle. But me and Jim thought it'd be funny if it would be a 5 gigahertz 3950X.
Even if just in name, like Intel?
No, because you remember the leak he had said it'd be 5 gigahertz.
Oh yeah.
That'd be funny because then it would look a little bit better. It would just be a year off. I don't know. I think the way AMD defines their boost, they could probably get 5 gigahertz, like on a single core. It took Gamers Nexus like 1.4 volts for a 5 gigahertz all core overclock on the 3950X. I think they could probably, given that they do like 1.45 volts per single core, I think they could probably do a 5 gigahertz boost. They just need more binning.
And that could very well be what the delay could get them. I don't think that there's anything in the high end like that they'll be releasing. I think it's going to be something to fill a gap. Maybe a 16-core high-end desktop chip, or perhaps something on the low end that's going to be like a 4 or 8-core chip.
The thing is, on Threadripper, it does have to be the Castle Peak architecture. Architecture I mean in terms of like the package, because it has to use the Threadripper iodine.
Yeah, because they're not coming out with a new chipset for it. That is something that was mentioned.
Yeah, no new chipset, unless it's being launched alongside B550, which is not a new chipset.
The only way they'd be able to come out with a 16 would be if they had either just 2 die on Threadripper, or if they did 4 die with 4 cores per die, which would give more L3 cache, of course, similar to what we saw with their Epic CPUs, and that could have some benefit.
It's not really worth it to launch a 16-core Threadripper because it has that massive IO die. It'd be too expensive.
It would definitely have the price up there, but it would give them something to cushion right between the 16-core desktop chip and the 24-core Threadripper, though. There is a price point there.
Is the big gap there?
There's a gap, yeah. But I think it'd make people hate AMD for launching a product that's probably going to have no supply to it.
Yeah, I could see it though as an entry point for someone that wants, say, the 256 gig of RAM for the 16 core, but not actually need the full compute performance of, say, 24 or 32 cores, but needs the L3 cache that the 4 die would give them.
I mean, all the things you're saying are interesting. For me, at least, I think that it might also be that what if they go for the improvements for the 3700 and 3800 just on the boost clocks, so that they approach more on them, and they don't touch the 3900 series.
I think the 37X and the 3800X sell too poorly to really matter. I don't think they're going to refresh those.
Okay.
Well, and I don't think there's much to push them in. What are we going to get? Another 100 megahertz? Ooh, right?
They could do more. They could do as much as the 3950X. It just wouldn't matter. It wouldn't make any sense because they can't sell it for more than like the 3900X. But they can sell a refreshed 3950X for more. they could do that, and that's why I really like the idea of a 5 GHz 3950X. Also because it's a meme.
Well, I'd really like to see something along the lines of a Ryzen 3 come out. Something that you can get a sub $100 entry point into the platform. You can buy a A or B series 400 or 500 chipset that get this cheap, low barrier to entry desktop. Something that's more modern and performant.
I don't like that idea because I feel like it's too cheap for AMD. I don't think AMD has a reason to sell a Zen 2 CPU for so low with such poor specs.
You mean they don't want their name dragged through the mud by Walmart making a bunch of these with a single DIMM?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I'm thinking like, what could a quad-core Zen 2 do that a quad-core Zen Plus or 6-core Zen Plus couldn't? It's in AMD's best interest to push higher core speeds, higher core counts. There's no point launching a quad-core.
Just the fact that we can't guess, I think, makes this thing interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's something to look forward to doing.
I mean, we could just be surprised that it's a whole refresh. I don't know.
Or it could be total bollocks.
Yeah, it could just be fake.
Jim says it's from a good source, and it is from a good source, but
I mean, they're saying a CPU, so it's not like multiples. It's not a refresh for the whole lineup. It's none of that.
Right.
Yes, it is specifically a CPU. Jim is not plugging that.
Yeah.
That it is specifically a CPU.
And it's Matisse 2, which tells us it's desktop, so it's not a laptop. It's not a server. It's none of that. And that's why I'm saying the only place to stick it is going to be really on the low end, something below a 3600.
No, I disagree.
Or it's going to be slotted up in the top end where it slides in between the 16-core desktop and the 24-core Threadripper.
I don't think there's any point in them. I don't think AMD would ever launch a quad-core. I think it would be low end potentially, but it would be like a 3600X replacement refresh, where it's cheaper and also perhaps slightly faster. Anyways, that's about that. I wish Jim was here to talk about this. He might have given us more information to work with.
I know, right? I'm sure he has its own theories. Maybe we'll hear about it next week.
Maybe he could add something in post. Anyways, we have an exclusive that will come out the day that this podcast comes out. Thunder Bay SoC and some 10nm Xeon stuff. This is kind of boring, to be honest. I think a lot of people are going to be bored with this. But we got this info. We're going to use it. Anyways, Thunder Bay is a Movidius processor with Xeon cores. If you don't know what Movidius is, it's Intel's deep learning stuff. This is one of the Intel purchases from like 2017, 2018.
Yeah, Movidius is well known for, or should I say well known in circles, for vision and imaging processing.
Yes.
And of course AI.
And then we got the Movidius cores are on the 7nm TSMC process. Movidius was already on 16nm TSMC, so this isn't surprising. And we don't know what the Xeon cores are on. I think it's 10nm, but it could be 14 or 7. It's hard to tell because this is like in its first stepping, I guess. A0. I don't know if they would call it A0, but it is something equivalent to that. And it's probably, well, if it's using Xeon cores that aren't on 7nm TSMC, it would be a multi-die configuration, perhaps even chiplets.
We know it's a system on a chip, so it may not even be that many cores of Xeon to begin with. So this could be something for like vehicles, something low power, low size, so it can be strapped into camera systems or who knows what.
I mean, theoretically, the Xeon cores could also be on the 7nm TSMC. I just find that highly, highly unlikely.
Yeah, I don't think so. It'll probably come out of their own fabs. And 10nm would be just fine to churn out a 6-core Xeon chip. So
this Thunder Bay thing, this is first time it's ever been mentioned in relation to Movidius and Intel Xeon. I think I googled it just to make sure that we were the first, and I think there was something about Intel and Thunder Bay that's totally different. I think this is the first time. Okay, so then we also have some 10nm Xeon specs. We got Ice Lake SP on Whitley, and we got Sapphire Rapids on Eagle Stream. Those names we know all about. A lot of these specs have been rumored and we are confirming them. I haven't been keeping up with exactly what's going on with Ice Lake SP and Sapphire Rapids, but this is the leaked info we got. I know Jim previously said it would be up to 38 cores for Ice Lake SP, and we're still sticking with that. And we're also saying that's going to have 64 PCIe Gen 4 lanes. And then Sapphire Rapids is going to have 8-channel DDR5 support with 80 PCIe 5 lanes. CXL, which is Intel's interconnect technology. There was like some kind of whole thing with like CXL and CCIX or something, I believe, which is the more open source version. And then there's going to be support for HBM2 that is optional. But then there's also apparently in a single socket, it can have even more PCIe 5 lanes at 112. So maybe that's a dual die part?
Well, the 112 lanes comes from the lanes that were being used to do the interconnect between the two sockets.
Yeah, that could be what it's implying. I believe we already knew it had DDR5 and PCIe 5. I think semi-accurate leaked that. I don't know if he leaked how many lanes there would be. I definitely don't think he leaked HBM2 support, which I find very interesting. We did get a Sapphire Rapids leak like in October. We were told it would basically be like a showpiece, that it wouldn't be manufactured in a significant capacity. And I imagine this is why it has so much modern features, because it's not going to be very plentiful in supply.
Or price competitive, probably.
Yeah, it'll probably be a Cascade Lake AP thing again, especially if it's a dual die design.
If they're coming out with HBM2 support, I see this as something that might be very niche.
Aurora, we know it has Intel CPUs and Intel GPUs. Maybe Aurora will use Sapphire Rapids.
Yeah, that could make sense.
That might be confirmed already. I don't know. I don't keep on top of this data center stuff. Semi-Accurate probably has a bunch of info on this. I know they've talked about Sapphire Rapids and probably Aurora. I'm not sure. But after Sapphire Rapids, I believe it's Granite Rapids and then Diamond Rapids. And I think we only have names for those. I don't think we know anything about that, really.
Yeah, anything we talked about would be speculation after that.
Yeah, but the important point is that we were first to a Movidius SoC. God, wouldn't it be funny if it got canceled?
We'll see. Time will tell.
That would be funny and sad. I don't think it would be canceled because it's on a good process, at least the Movidius part. But Intel canceled Nirvana immediately after launching it, didn't they? At CES, they announced like their Nirvana AI stuff, and then like a week later, they said Nirvana's closing, something like that. Because they have another company they bought called Habana.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyways, God, if they cancel Movidius, this is gonna be really sad.
Well, when you're facing issues with competitors actually competing and such, then you don't have enough slush funds for all these pet projects.
I don't know if it's about that. I just think they bought 2 AI companies and they're like, what are they going to do with this other one?
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, because Habana and Nirvana were both like focusing on the same thing, weren't they? I mean, they're both AI. I mean, there's lots of different types of AI. I just find that funny. Intel's almost becoming as bad as Google when it comes to this stuff.
16 companies that all do the same thing.
And they buy them all, and then they're like, let's cancel them.
That way our solution becomes the number one.
Yeah, I guess they're just buying them to get rid of them.
Well, if you don't want the competition in the marketplace, or if there's not enough pie to go around.
Okay, I guess that is it for our main topics.
Yeah, we can move on to the Q&A.
Yeah, which is something we've introduced. We did a Q&A live stream because there was no podcast last week.
Yeah.
Anything to talk about, really.
Go check that out on our website YouTube channel. We're actually going to be adding some content to there here in a little bit too. I just finished piecing together a video. So we'll have some more content on there, and hopefully more as time progresses. Have some video content to put up with our reviews primarily.
Yeah, so let's not re-answer questions that we already answered last time.
Correct. We have some in here that we wanted Adore to answer for you guys since we already provided one, but we can fall back to Aurelian answering at least one or two of these for himself, since we've already provided our answer in that other live stream.
Let's see if there's any, because most of these questions are really good to have for discussion, but we've already discussed them. Aurelian, which console, PS5 or Xbox One X, or sorry, Xbox Series X, do you think is going to be better overall, at least in terms of sales?
in sales.
Yes. Or if you don't care about the sales, just talk about which one you think is going to be better in general.
Well, I think PlayStation has a better brand image than Xbox, or worldwide. I mean, of course there are markets and markets, but I also have to say that I do want to give kudos to Microsoft to, at least on spec, Xbox X looks good. Not that the PS5 necessarily looks bad, not saying that. So it's hard to say, but I do think that as a brand on the console side, PlayStation still has a bit of an edge. So I would say that maybe PlayStation will still be ahead, but it will be very tight, I think, and depends on the prices, and that I have no idea how they'll play. If Microsoft plays good at the prices, then they might be a really tough competitor to Sony.
I feel like Microsoft is going to have a hard time pricing this cheaper, but
yeah, we'll see.
But Sony does have like a really good SSD, and that's also going to be an expensive SSD. So who knows? Could be closer in price than we expect. Let's see.
Well, I think only the exclusives are really going to be able to take advantage of that, because they're going to be writing stuff to run on both platforms for anyone that's not an exclusive, and so they're not going to be able to take advantage of the SSD in the same way.
Yeah.
On the flip side, they're not going to be able to throw in a whole lot of visual because the Xbox can handle it and the PlayStation can't. And so they're going to have to either make kind of a stratification there between the two systems, higher res textures on one versus the other. I don't know, but there's going to be some trade-offs that they're going to have to do between the two systems for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so this is also about consoles. From one of our Discord moderators, Nick. So we know that new consoles will have performance similar to 2080 or 2080 Super. Let's consider that consoles will cost about $500 and 2080 Super costs about $700. How much would be a reasonable price for Navi 2 GPU or RDNA 2 with next-gen console-like performance? It won't make any sense for the price to be anywhere near $500. Even $400 would feel like a rip-off, since you will be better off with a console. So basically his argument is that what's a reasonable price? Also, $500 would be really expensive because a similar GPU isn't a $500 console.
Well, I think this is playing on the assumption that the consoles will be $500 to $600, I guess.
And I think that's true.
It is very likely it's going to be close to that. So
it's either $400 to $500 or $500 to $600. It's going to be right in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So for 52 compute unit GPU, or 56, since the Xbox Series X die has a physical 56, it's just a 4 disabled. $500. I mean, if it's $500, then that's a significant blow to the 2080 and 2080 Super.
Yeah, I think Nick takes the. I mean, he has a point there that the consoles become very, very enticing. It will be like 500 or something, but the competitor of the discrete card is not the console. You probably don't compete those with the consoles. You competed with 2080s.
I think what he's talking about is that since they can afford to sell it on the console, they can afford to sell it for even cheaper if it's just by itself. But it should be noted that GPUs have they have their own memory, they have their own PCIe, they have their own cooler. What they're really shaving off is those Zen 2 cores and like the whole construct of the console and like the storage. And you also have to consider that like Microsoft and Sony can afford to sell these consoles at a loss. AMD can't sell the GPUs at a loss. I don't think it would be bad if we saw like a $600 or $500 GPU with the same specs.
Yeah, and both Sony and Microsoft, I mean, they might sell the console itself at a loss, but we have to realize that they have other income streams. So, I mean, they are making money through various subscriptions and various plans. So,
yes,
they are gonna sell the consoles or are gonna place the consoles maybe below the cost, but they are gonna make that money in some other ways. And AMD won't see any penny of that other income stream.
And I think the hidden question in this is, will we start seeing more people drop out of the PC gaming market and pick up the console gaming market because they can get a similar performance at a cheaper price?
That is a very good question, and it might be that we are going there.
I mean, we've seen it with the streaming of games that's already trying to do the same kind of thing. I think we might see an uptake of console gamers over people buying PCs to game.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that the PC itself is being squeezed from the other end because they also have, there's these laptops that we just discussed about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But people will game on the laptops too.
True. So as a market, the PC, as we think traditionally PC, might be...
The desktop.
The desktop, exactly, will be squeezed a lot in the next 5 years. A lot.
Yeah, and so I think the people that are still going to be doing PC gaming are going to be people that have PCs for more than just gaming, because you won't be able to do that on a console, and a laptop probably will be a little underpowered for what they're going to want to do. Now, if on a console they set it up so you could hook up a keyboard and mouse and play around on Facebook, I think there would be a lot less cells in the PC market for people that are wanting to use their console as a more general purpose computer. But I'm not sure if they're going to go that route with this next gen. It'd be smart if they did.
I had an interesting thought. This AMD might actually be hurting Nvidia a lot with these consoles indirectly. Because if people are going to start moving away from the desktop, then that's going to hurt Nvidia. I know they make a lot of their money in laptops, not necessarily the desktop, but if like desktop sales go down, then that will hurt Nvidia, because most of their sales are in gaming GPUs.
Which means that their top end might actually start being more padded as far as revenue is concerned, because they're going to have to start milking that top end quite a bit, because it's going to be one of their sole bread and butters for the high margins that we're used to.
I feel like that would put it in like a downward spiral.
It would be a negative feedback for sure.
And let's not forget the APUs.
I think they have to make it cheaper.
They should.
And then AMD, they don't, I mean, they're selling the consoles. They're selling the hardware and the consoles and the PCs. To them, it doesn't really matter which one wins.
Yeah.
I think they would rather have the desktop win, but the thing is that it's a lot harder to make the desktop win, especially for AMD.
They're also the CPUs in the laptops now too, so yeah, they're getting a cut of that pie. Now, so far we've only been seeing these laptops that have a Nvidia GPU tied in with them, but I can see a large portion of these laptops not coming with an Nvidia GPU and actually being targeted more for like lower spec gamers or business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look a bit long term, I mean, both Intel is also developing their own GPU, Z, and AMD and Intel will be basically squeezing Nvidia out of that whole market.
Yeah, Nvidia is going to have a hard time. Their MX series, except maybe like the new MX350, which is a 1050 rebadge, the MX series is dead. Even Ice Lake is faster than the MX250 sometimes. Renoir is going to be pretty close to the top end MX. It's faster than every other MX. And then the DG1, even though DG1 might be kind of slow, it'll probably be faster than the 1050, or not the 1050, but the MX, maybe not the MX350, which is the 1050 rebadge. And then you have Tiger Lake U, which is going to be a little bit slower than DG1. Overall, Nvidia is going to have a hard time at the low end, and then they're going to have a hard time at the high end with RDNA 2. They're already having a hard time in the mid-range because of Navi, and that's just Navi 1, not Navi 2. And then there's going to be the consoles, which is going to be taking attention away from the desktop. Overall, these are going to be the toughest years for Nvidia, I think. But if they can just break out into those other markets they've been working on, then they'll be fine. But they are very dependent on that gaming revenue right now. It makes up, like, if not a plurality, sorry, if it doesn't make up a majority of their income, it makes up a plurality, like maybe like 40%. So we got off on a tangent on my question there.
I think it's a good tangent, though.
Yeah, it's a good tangent. I've been saying this for a little while now, that Nvidia's in for a tough time.
But I mean, if I would answer directly, Nick, if I would say my own prognosis, I mean, of course, I might be wrong as next guy, but I would expect it to be between $400 and $500. But I can't see it going below. I really don't see it below 400.
I think that's optimistic. I think we could see as high as 600, unless Nvidia is doing good work on their gaming GPUs.
Oh, I can go up.
Those gaming GPUs are rumored to be delayed, but if they're not, then AMD cannot price that at 600. 500 would be risky. $400 would give them the guaranteed win. It would be a really good win, I think.
I mean, I know people want to have a excellent card at 300 baht, but times have changed. We have to just kind of, unfortunately, just smell the coffee and realize that the mid-range is 400 now.
Yeah.
Just is. Yeah, it does suck a lot.
Yeah, Adord's harped on that a lot in his videos, and I mean, it is the way that things are going, but it's probably due to less demand. I mean, the iGPUs have been getting substantially better, and consoles obviously are getting a lot better now, and so that shrinks the overall market that they can sell these GPUs to. Less cells equals less money overall.
And it's getting more expensive to even make these things in the first place.
Yeah, as we do each node shrink, yeah, we get more performance, more capability, less power, but it has that side effect of costing more too.
Well, I think that's about it for this one. I don't think we have anything else to talk about. It's a shame Jim didn't come in.
Hopefully he gets a chance in post to throw in his 2 cents.
Yeah, maybe like a minute or two, or maybe just some like annotations.
We'll give him the opportunity though before we actually publish. So
I hope the stuff that, because I just made that preview article before we did the podcast because I forgot to. I hope I didn't talk about anything that we can't talk about. If it looks like something's been cut in there, that means something's been cut because we said something we weren't supposed to.
don't worry, I have the article up on screen, so he's gonna have to cut the video as well.
Yeah, because the thing is, I noticed that there's some details in the outline that aren't in the information that he gave me.
All right, well, thank you two for joining us, and we will have hopefully another podcast next weekend.
Unless Human Malware cancels that one too.
We can do the podcast from the safety of our bunkers, so I think we'll be fine.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you in the next one.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Many of you watching this will know Nvidia as something of a gamer's champion, a company which releases newer, faster graphics cards every year that allows us to enjoy the latest and greatest games. Some of you will believe that, but let me tell you about the real Nvidia. Did you ever wonder where the name Nvidia came from? It's a very clever name with a clear connotation to the word video, but the word Nvidia in Latin also means envy, which, as you may know, is one of the Christian 7 deadly sins, and clearly envy is an undesirable trait. So you may think that this is just sheer coincidence, but envy, jealousy, is also known as the green eye, the green-eyed monster, and that would be 2 coincidences, which is something I don't believe in. Nvidia was founded in April 1993 by Chris Malachowski, Curtis Priem, and ex-AMD engineer Jensen Huang, who today is still president and CEO of the company. And back in 1993, the green eye, Nvidia, looked jealously on the graphics card market and desired it all for itself. Nvidia is a designer of integrated circuits, with the vast majority of these designs based around graphics, but they never manufactured their own chips. In 1994, Nvidia formed their first strategic partnership with SGS Thomson, better known today as ST Microelectronics, or simply called ST. Today, ST are Europe's largest semiconductor chip maker. In 1995, Nvidia launched its first product, the NV1, manufactured, of course, by ST. The NV1 was a complete 2D and 3D graphics core, integrated sound card, and also included a joypad port. The chip found limited success in the Diamond Edge 3D card, and Nvidia had gambled on quadrilaterals in an attempt to cozy up to Sega, who used the same format in their Saturn game console. Although the NV1's performance was capable, it was just too difficult to develop for, while also being very expensive due to the sound card and joystick ports. NV1, like the Saturn, faded rather quickly into obscurity. Nvidia's fortunes changed, however, in 1997 with the launch of their Riva 128 accelerator. Still manufactured at ST, the Riva 128 was designed for DirectX, and by this stage Nvidia had ditched quadratic texture mapping for the industry standard triangles. The Riva 128 succeeded where NV1 failed, and with 1 million units sold in the first 4 months after launch, Nvidia soon found themselves in need of a larger manufacturing partner. And so in 1998, Nvidia formed a multi-year strategic partnership with the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company TSMC, and from February 1998 and for the next 20 years plus, TSMC would assist in the manufacturing of all future Nvidia products, starting with the Riva 128, ZX. But Nvidia's success with Riva had not gone unnoticed, and the company soon attracted unwelcome patent lawsuits. First of all from Silicon Graphics, who claimed that Nvidia's Riva processors violated their texture cache memory and texture interpolation logic on one chip, a patent developed by an engineer who subsequently left to join Nvidia. A couple of months later, S3 were also at it, claiming that Nvidia's Riva family of graphics processors infringed upon 3 separate video patents. And then later in 1998, Nvidia's third rival 3DFX slapped yet another patent infringement suit on the company, alleging that Nvidia had incorporated 3DFX's multi-texturing technology in its own products. Nvidia's response was swift and telling. First of all, settling the patent case with SGI, with the companies cross-licensing each other's patent portfolios and SGI dismissing its suit. Nvidia then countersued S3, a vague patent focusing on audio, with an S3 representative saying that this lawsuit was simply a negotiation tactic to get S3 to settle on the outstanding graphics patent suit filed against Nvidia in 1998. As it turns out, a successful tactic, as S3 and Nvidia both dropped their lawsuits, before also going on to license each other's patents. And then finally, on the same day 3DFX announced a huge financial loss, Nvidia also sued them in what the press called a tactical lawsuit revenge. And that was enough to tip 3DFX over the edge, with Nvidia acquiring the graphics pioneer and all of their intellectual property. Years later, in 2006, we found out that SGI, Silicon Graphics, around the same time that the Nvidia deal was sealed, SGI canned the internal high-end graphics team, with only around 1 in 10 surviving, if that, while also telling the low-end graphics team that Nvidia would be paying their salaries while they finished their death march, and afterwards they would be Nvidia employees. That was part of the Nvidia settlement. Along with the cross-licensing of IP, it effectively meant that SGI was exiting any meaningful graphics hardware development for the first time. And going back to 1993, where Nvidia boasts that by 2006 Nvidia was the only independent still operating. What this didn't tell you was the way in which they achieved it, which involved countersuing, cross-licensing, and snapping up the cream of their rivals' engineering talent, or simply the whole company. By the turn of the century, Nvidia had shown themselves to be absolutely merciless in dealings with their competition. And Nvidia once again showed this in no uncertain terms at the beginning of 2001, when their now ex-manufacturing partner STMicro signed up with Hercules to produce the Cairo 2 graphics card. Now, Hercules were a very old name in computer graphics, formed in 1982 in California. They had started fading into relative obscurity by the end of the 90s and were no longer a major player in the graphics arena, and Nvidia were said to be unconcerned about this move. Although the Cairo 2 was a pretty good chip, using tile-based rendering over a decade before Nvidia incorporated the same technology, but Nvidia's claims of being unconcerned did not match their actions, as witnessed by this leaked 12-page hit piece titled Cairo 2, What You Should Know. And it starts by saying that the Cairo 2 is old. It is very old. A beefed up Cairo designed back in 1997, designed for DX6, not DX8, while being designed by a committee with an unproven record. And throughout this document, Nvidia had cherry-picked some of the less flattering comments on the Cairo 2 taken from certain reviews across the web, including from Sharky Xtreme's review. There are caveats to buying such a card. For one, the feature set is relatively dated, while also going on to say that Cairo 2 will look and perform terrible on new games, and also citing the AnandTech review of the card, where AnandTech said reviewers were supplied 175 MHz boards on a chip that is only spec'd to run at 166 MHz. In the conclusion, Nvidia stated the GeForce 2 MX is cheaper, more fully featured, has a brand name, has proven drivers, and is available now, and that buying the Cairo 2 is a risk, and when cards and PCs get returned, it damages your finances and your reputation. 12 pages of FUD on a single graphics card from a tiny, struggling manufacturer. But most telling of all in this entire document was this, when Nvidia cited their old partner SGS Thomson as having a poor record with complex design. Nvidia more than happy to throw their old partners under the bus when their usefulness had run out. As far as the presentation claims of Cairo 2 being designed by a committee with an unproven record, the Register disagreed with that. The Power VR family has been highly rated in the past, and it was chosen by Sega for the Dreamcast console. The Register also points out that essentially Nvidia spins the data to suggest list flaws and failings with Cairo 2 in order to stress the superiority of its own GeForce 2 MX part. With the article concluding, of course Nvidia has every right to point out why its products are better than our rivals, but it's rather poor to rely on dissing them directly, and the company does seem to have overstepped the mark a bit here, particularly since its market lead is hardly threatened by the rival part. Nvidia gets more like Intel every day. 2 years later, graphics pioneer Hercules were also out of the market. Barely a year after their Cairo 2 FUD campaign, Nvidia were back with their GeForce 4 series, committing the same crimes they had accused Hercules of the year before. The GeForce 4 series comprised of two chips, NV17 and NV25. NV25 is perhaps the more famous TI series of cards, like your 4400 and your 4600 Ti. NV17, however, something much less impressive, because the NV17 core lacked all of the DX8 pixel and vertex shader units that made the original GeForce 3 what it was, meaning that NV17 would basically be a GeForce 2 MX. As Aaron Tech noted, luckily Nvidia decided against calling this the GeForce 3 MX. Unfortunately, they stuck with the name GeForce 4 MX, even more misleading to those that aren't well informed, as it gives the impression that the card at least has the minimal set of features that the GeForce 3 had, which it doesn't. This GeForce 4 naming convention for what was basically a GeForce 2 feature level card caused great consternation amongst game developers. The reason for that is simple. Well over 80% of all graphics cards sold at this time were priced under $200, and since that was the market that the GeForce 4 MX was after, should the product succeed, then a great deal of that 80% plus of the market would not have DX8 support. Just like the Cairo 2 a year ago, and that simply meant that developers would be less inclined to support those features in their games. And despite harsh criticism by gaming enthusiasts, the GeForce 4 MX range was a market success, rapidly replacing the GeForce 2 MX as the best-selling GPU. And Nvidia's decision to segment the market with what was basically a rebranded GeForce 2 simply held back the development of new gaming technologies. Now, those of you paying attention back in 2000 maybe noticed this Xbox, and obviously Microsoft had chosen Nvidia as the graphics chip provider for the very first Xbox console. However, it wasn't long before things started going awry, with shipments falling far short of their original targets, and it was even less time before both Microsoft and Nvidia headed off to the courts over a disagreement